Hello everyone, Pastor Ian, the Krabby Crafter here, and just wanted to welcome you to this unboxing of the June Simon Says Stamp card kit. Now, I've done reviews for card kits in the past, and I think I've deleted a lot of them for different reasons. Companies have to make money, obviously, and we as crafters, we need supplies and different things, but we don't want to break the bank doing it. And so what I encourage everyone to do is just, as always, use discretion in what you buy. Make sure it's something that you need. So when it comes to the Simon Says Stamp kits, I do not buy these every month. I look for very specific kits, very specific things. And this month's kit just really spoke to me for a couple reasons, and we'll share why as we go through the unboxing. I will say that one of the things about the Simon Says Stamp kits is that they don't come with dies. They don't come with everything you need to make a card. You're going to have to use from your supplies in your stock. But other than that, I love the Simon Says Stamp. So they come with this amazing storage bag, which you'll be able to use repeatedly, even after you're done using the kit. And the kit this month came with the Tim Holtz Ideology collage strips. And I ordered an extra set of the strips because somehow, for some reason, when they came out with the Ideology last year, I didn't order the strips. I normally order all of the Ideology stuff, and I didn't have any strips, so I ordered an extra one. So that's why that's right there on the top. Now, let's take a look at what we got. And you've probably already seen this. Other videos and other card makers get their kits ahead of time. And so I purchased mine, $39.99. And let's see what we get in the kit here this month. Of course, they always throw the sucker in there. I love the little suckers. So you're gonna get a Simon Says Stamp dot runner. Okay, and that's going to help with making a card. So we're gonna set that off to the side there. And let's see, here is of course the collage strips, which looks like that bag tore, but that's okay. And so here's the collage strips that come with it. And like we said, we ordered an extra set. So we got 2 of those. We'll be able to make some more cards with that. This month came with some beautiful paper. And I love the fact that it's single-sided. I hate double-sided paper. Just pick a side. That's all I'm saying. Just pick a side. I feel like I'm losing. Anytime I choose one side over the other, I feel like I'm losing a whole sheet of paper. When in reality, I'm actually using a sheet of paper. But what I love about the one-sided sheets is we don't have that problem. So this paper that came, oh my goodness, the paper choices that came with this, and this has got the gold foil hearts on the pink background. The paper selection this month is absolutely beautiful. And let's see, I think we got 12 sheets in here. That's 4. Look at that gold foil. There's 5, and there's 6. I love the paper pad that comes with this month. This is just incredible. This one, I'm gonna have so much fun with this. I'm gonna have to find out what pad this came from, and I may have to buy some more of this paper because the paper this month is just amazing. And so this one's absolutely beautiful. That's like kind of like a bluish background with all the gold foil there. That is absolutely beautiful. And then we have this, and I know there's a name for that, but I can't remember what it is. And just this paper, oh my God, and I don't know if you can see this. The color, it's almost like it shimmers, but it doesn't. And it fades. You've got some blues, some purples, some greens, and that is just a beautiful sheet of paper right there. And so we've also got, here's some more gold foil. Look at that with all the leaves in there. I lost count. This is more than 12 sheets. I feel like this might be like 20 sheets of paper. And so there we go. And then here are the last 2 sheets. Look at that. Beautiful gold foil. And then there's that flowered pattern. So what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful set of paper this month. Now, also, we have this beautiful embossing folder. And this is why I got the kit. The stamps in the embossing folder this month are just amazing. These stamps, first of all, we'll come back to the embossing folder. These stamps, they're solid print, okay? And you can overlay them, and you can piece flowers together. You've got just a lot of sentiments with this one. Thinking of you, you're the best ever. You're always on my mind just because. I'm so grateful for your kindness. Hello, friend. Thank you. And then you've got all these flowers, and you can fill these in with different colors. I've seen some of the other card makers tutorials online already. They're amazing. And somebody pointed this out. This, and I'm going to pull it up where hopefully you can see it. They're numbered C1, C2, C3. So you know which ones go together. A1, A2, B1, B2, and then your greenery is just your greenery. Your greenery is because you can add that any way you want. So the greenery just is its own piece. Then you've got E1, E2, F1, F2, D1, D2. I love that. I love that. So I'm not going to spend my time trying to figure out what goes with what. And so we're gonna have so much fun with that. But beautiful stamp set. When I buy a kit, I don't want to buy a kit that I'm going to use one time, and then we're done. Use up all the paper pieces, and then I got stamps that I'll never use again. So when I buy a kit, that's what I look for, and that's what I encourage you to do too as well. If you see the stamps, you're like, oh, I'm going to use those. There have been a couple of kits I did not buy, and I regret it, because the only way to get the stamps were in that kit. Every now and then, some of the different companies will release those stamp sets a year or two later on clearance or something as part of them. They were once part of a kit, and they'll say this was in a kit, now it's available. But a lot of times they will tell you the only way to get it is to order the kit. So that's just your choice. These will get a lot of use. I will make a lot of cards with these stamps. And then once again, coming back to this beautiful embossing folder, what I love about this is the detail in this folder, the flowers and everything, and then this little window here. And there's a die, so if you just emboss it, it's going to leave that flat area there, and you can just stamp a sentiment directly into it. Or after you've embossed this, you can cut it out, and then you can either put another piece in its place. There's just all kinds of different things you can do with that, and we'll actually make a video later showing you how we use that, how I use this. And so this is just a beautiful, and let me just go ahead and, you know what, let's just pop this thing out of the package here, and let's just take a good look at it. So excited about this. So here is your die, and it's stuck down. I'm not going to pull that off right now because I don't want it to be free floating. And here's your embossing folder. And so this is just a great 3D embossing folder. We're gonna have fun with that. So there's that. And then the last thing that comes with the kit. And then, by the way, they always give you this in there. Here's some ideas right here, so you can see how those stamps work. Now there's dies. Simon Says Stamp always offers dies. At least I've always seen them offer dies to go with their stamp set. They're not included in the kit. They're extra. And they usually run about $39.95. That's another $40. I don't buy the dies. I'll just stamp directly onto a card, or I will fussy cut because I just don't spend a lot of money on dies. I have too many dies as it is. I would rather have the stamps, because the stamp you can use. Just put it right on the card and you're done. And if you want a fussy cut, fussy cut. So you can see here this beautiful job that Callie Pearson did here. You can see all the colors there, just stamping and just creating a background. And then she cut that out, obviously using a rectangle die, and it looks like a stitch die, and then she added that to it. So that's the thing with Simon Says Stamp. With this kit, you're going to need to add, you're going to need to bring some envelopes in and some cards in. You're going to need to bring some glue and you're going to need those other things. This kit is the Simon Says Stamp kits are really about the stamps and sometimes some extra ephemera and stuff. It's really about the stamps. And in this case, this month, it's about the stamps and this beautiful, beautiful folder for me. That was the thing for me. So here you can see where Sherry Carroll cut out, stamped, and then looks like she embossed and then cut this piece out of, looks like maybe a silver cardstock. And then here you can see also where it's been cut and layered over the embossed folder. So there's just so many different ways you can do that. Off the top of my head, there's about 3 different techniques. And so we're going to add that into the video, and we're going to show you how to do that. And then here you can see that these were, again, either cut out with dies or fussy cut. So just a beautiful kit. And then, as always, they're going to give you some cardstock. Not a lot. You're going to have to reach into your cardstock to make some cards, to make your card bases. But these are 8.5 by 11 sheets, which means if I cut that in half and score it, that's 2 card bases, as well as this. These will all make card bases. Or you can cut them down and use them for layering. So we got that beautiful pink, this kind of a yellowish color, this white, and then this color, which I have no idea what that is. We're going to say that's like a rose gold. Let's see what we've got here. So here's what comes in the kit. the 6x8 clear stamp set, the Jubilee embossing folder with a coordinating die. It's 18 sheets of the pattern paper, and that's I'm gonna have to buy that paper pad. The dot runner, the ideology collage strips, the mesh bag, the rose gold metallic 100-pound cardstock. That is so beautiful. And again, I'm pretty sure that this cardstock is what Cherie used to cut out that right there. So again, beautiful stuff. And then of course you get also cotton candy and cream cardstock, and then the solar white. So there's your solar white, there's your cream, there's your cotton candy. But anyways, there you go. So that's the Simon Says Stamp card kit. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take a little time to gather some stuff from my supplies, put them together, and just kind of get everything together so I can make a few cards, figure out what I want to do with the paper and the collage strips, and even before you use the stamps and the embossing folder, just the collage strips alone and that pattern paper will make some beautiful cards when you put them onto a card base. So I'm going to take a little break, get everything ready, and then we'll be back and we'll put together some cards for you. All right, so we are back, and I want to give you a little update on where we are before we start working our way through making these cards. So I've laid out all of my collage strips. I did them by color and come up with some themes. And I've actually taken these two collage strips and I've taped them together with some washi tape, because we're actually going to cut that out. And then, so we're just kind of show you what I want to show you guys is the setup process. When you watch these videos, what you see is everybody's putting their cards together. Maybe they're doing some ink blending. Maybe you get to see some of that. What you don't see is, the hour or 2 hours that you'll spend going through your stuff and trying to figure out what you want to do. So let me show you my process. The first thing that I recognized is that I'm not buying the dies that go with this kit. You could, but again, that's like $40, $50. It varies, and it's expensive. Great dies, but don't need them. These will fussy cut well enough, and these will be used well enough without me having to actually cut them out. But these sentiments, these wonderful sentiments that came with it, lend themselves well to the right kind of die if you have them. And I actually have two sets of dies here. They're both by Tim Holtz. This is the stacked decal, and then I think this is the oval decal, or just, well, it's not decal, but it's, not sure what it's called. But anyways, those are the two dies that I'm going to use. And what I did was I pulled out from this one, this die, because this die fits, here we go. I'm so grateful for your kindness. And I'm going to be able to stamp that, line that up, and that's going to fit nicely over there. So we're actually going to cut out and stamp that and use that. And I don't know if I'm going to emboss it yet or not. And then I also have, let's move this out of the way. I also have from back to this set, I cut out two of these. I pulled two of these out because this one, what I'm going to do with this one is we're actually going to, and this is why I taped those two together, is we're actually going to cut this out, and we're just going to kind of make a different collage. It's a little too big to work just on one. That being said, this one works perfect. I mean, it fits perfect, so I can frame anything I want, and it's actually going to give it that nice deckled edge. Now, I could do that with scissors too, but I've got the dies, so my philosophy is you have the dies, use them. So that's what we've got set up so far. We also did a few other things, and I'm actually going to show you this in the video. I took the dies, and I took the stamps, rather, and I just sort of tried to see how they fit together. So I learned some things about this set, and this is what you'll want to know if you have this. Lining these rascals up is a little bit tricky. This one is so easy. I mean, just a dot in the middle. I went with yellow on the first one, then I just put brown in the middle. A little cappuccino, I think. The blue and the yellow dot lines up so well. This little rascal here, a little tricky. And you can see that it's not centered. And on the bottom one here, you can see that the ink ran together. This is what I learned with this particular set. If you don't want to press hard on that little inner part, when you stamp that, you want to just give it a gentle kiss. And I did this with my stamping platform. Actually, I did these freehand and did not line up well. So I decided to break out the stamping platform. And with the stamping platform, I made these two cards right here. Now these are going to be these are top folding cards. And so I just took and I just stamped them right onto the card. Okay. And You can see on this one, tried to freehand it, didn't work. Didn't work. Didn't work. So I've decided either I'm not going to use this or I just don't care. We're just going to find some way to make that work a little better. But I will say that using the stamping platform, you notice you kept all the detail there, is just a gentle kiss. Now this one actually, this actually came out well. And I think it helped that I went with lighter colors. But I actually, when I did this one, I stamped that middle part first. And that's actually, if you look at it, it is actually B2. And B1 is the outer part. So this is B1, this is B2. Well, I actually stamped this one first because I found it easier when I was putting the stamp over it to line up the outer part. I found it was easier to see that than it was to see this after stamping that. So that's just some advice. If you have this stamp set, you may want to do that. But other than that, this looks amazing. And I actually like this one. I went with the lighter colors here. I like it a little better than the darker. Well, I like them both the same. And on this one, I had some spots. I wasn't sure how to fill them in, so I threw in just these random little flowers and then the leaves. And I like to do the light and the dark. And also, there was some spots where I had spilled some ink on this card. And so the beauty of that is I was able to hide it with the leaves. So we've already stamped those. We'll show you that in a minute. We're actually going to freehand another one, so you'll see that on the video. I'm actually going to show you that, guys, how to do that. I like to start lining stuff up and getting everything together. Let me show you this one as well. This is also Framelits by Stephanie Barnhart. This is dotted rectangles. So what I've done with this one is I took the two largest rectangles. All right, and so for the largest, I cut that cream. And for the next largest, I used some of the pattern paper that came with the kit, and we're actually going to lay that over that. Now the dots, you can't really see the dotted rectangle on that because it's so light and everything, but I'm actually going to color blend this. I'm actually going to use some, you'll see me, we're going to use maybe some walnut stain or some vintage photo, and we're going to kind of grunge up the edges a little bit. So I think when we put that color under there, those dots may show through, but even if they don't, that's okay. So this is actually going to be part of one of the cards that we use. Next thing I did was I pulled these two pieces of paper together. We're going to combine those, and I use these two collage strips, so that's going to make a card. And then we also grabbed these two pieces of paper, and we're going to combine those together with these two collage strips, and we're going to make a card. And then we also are going to combine these two together. I don't have collage strips for these yet because I may or may not use the collage strips. I may just put a cinnamon on it. I may do something different. I haven't decided yet. But I have paired those up. They're ready to go. And again, we've also paired these two up, and they're ready to go. And I'm going to do something with this one. I think I'm going to probably just run a border down each side of this. You'll see what I mean when I make the card. So that's been paired up. And then I like the way this looks. I like this kind of that bluish background with the sparkle and that green. And I may wind up doing a card that kind of looks something like that. I think that's what I may wind up doing. We'll see. But I go ahead and get all my pattern paper together that I'm going to be using so that we can, once we start making cards, we can just kind of roll. Did a lot of cutting off screen, off camera. Now, there are other videos on the website that you can go to, you can actually watch them doing it, and they'll tell you the same things I'm fixing to tell you here. What I do is I took a sheet of that beautiful shiny rose gold, and I went ahead and we cut it, we embossed it, and then I used the die to cut this out. Now, when you run this back through, when you emboss it and then run it back through your machine to cut it out, it's going to press out some of that pattern. So after I cut it out, I run this back through the embossing folder, and then I run this back through the embossing folder. And you can see there very clearly, you still have that beautiful detail, just that gorgeous three-dimensional detail from that. And I was going to leave one having not run it back through, unredone, if you will, and to show you what I mean, but I forgot to do that. So just trust me, when you cut that out, you will lose some of the image. And so we wanted to do this. And so there's a piece of that beautiful cotton candy cardstock. And this one we're actually going to do we're going to do a little ink blending, following one of the suggestions from one of the videos on the website. And so we've got that one ready to go. I cut one out of white here, And the way I did this one, I literally just, I put this, I ran it, I cut it out first with the cardstock plain, and then I lined it up in the embossing folder and I embossed it. That was a little bit tricky. I think next time what I'll do is cut a small piece, emboss it, cut it out, and emboss it again, because it just seems to work better that way. It seems to line up better that way. And then we've got this one, which we did not cut out. We're going to leave this just the way it is, maybe do some coloring on it, and then stamp a sentiment right there, and maybe we'll use a collage strip, don't know yet. I may do one more of these because what I was thinking is this is regular cardstock. I'm going to cut one of these. I want to emboss one of these out of watercolor, and then I want to have some fun, maybe just coloring this in. So we may do that for you. So that's what we've done off screen. Everything else at this point is pretty much ready to go. Got all these extra collage strips that I don't have a plan to use them yet. That may change. We were going to add some butterflies. We were going to do some different things, but when it all came down to it, I just decided, nope, I think I'm good. And I'm really bought this kit because I love the stamps. So we're going to make a couple more of these. And this is just fun. I just enjoy doing this. Now, I did use my stamping platform again. I have a Tim Holtz. I have the Tim Holtz stamping platform. But you can use a Misty or whatever you got. You can freehand this, okay? The trickiest, this one's easy to freehand. This one's easy to freehand. It's really easy. This is the trickiest one, but I think the key here is do that tight little inner circle first, and then you can kind of eyeball that, and you put that on your little stamp block, and you can just go straight down. And if you're off a little bit, you're off a little bit. But you know, if you're okay with that, I'm sort of okay with this. It just looks like the flower's kind of looking down. Like, in fact, if you turn that card that way, it looks like two eyeballs. That's kind of weird looking. But anyways, we're going to stamp a few more of those for you just so you can see the stamping process. Because when I buy from Simon Says Stamp, this is pretty much, when I see the kit, this is pretty much what I go for. I ask myself, am I going to use this more than once? And the answer to that is yes. So there's some help for you guys. So again, when I make my videos is not to, oh, yes, I'm a master card maker. I do this, you know, I do this for a living. No, I do this because it's fun. I do it because I enjoy it. And I want to give you guys tips and ideas. And I want you to know what you're getting into. I haven't seen a card. Well, that's not true. The other day, I think it was Nicole Spohr actually made a statement about if you're going to do this, you need to enjoy it, and you don't need to, you know, use your supplies. You don't need to break the bank doing it. But you don't hear a lot about that. It just seems like all this new stuff that's coming out, we got to buy it, got to have it, no, I've got shelves full of stuff right now. I was in Joann's the other day. I was in Hobby Lobby the other day, and I walked out of both stores without buying anything because I just have more stuff than I can use right now. Unless it's something that it's going to, a limited edition or something that I desperately have to have, I just don't need it right now. So hope that helps you guys out a little bit. Now we're going to put some cards together. There's 5 or 6 videos on the Simon Says Stamp website for this particular card kit. Kathy, Nicole, and Nina Marie all have videos, and there's a couple others and some great ideas out there. So, but we're going to make a couple cards too, and just hopefully that'll encourage you just to have fun, play with your stuff. My table looks like this all the time. It's just chaos in the craft room. And sometimes I'll spend an hour cleaning up. That's actually therapeutic for me. Sometimes I'll spend an hour making a mess for no reason. I'll pull stuff out, never use it, put it back. I like handling it. I like knowing it's there. I like all of a sudden I get that burst of creative energy and I do something. But one of the things, again, that I love about this is I can just sit down and just start stamping. I can just... And it's just fun. And when you're done, I mean, that's just so colorful and pretty. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and get everything together, clear this up, and we're going to start making some cards, hopefully give you some guys' idea. But again, as always, just a reminder, guys, I think the ability to create is a gift from God. And this should be a hobby. It should be something you enjoy. It shouldn't ruin your life. So just have fun doing it. Do it the way you do it. As Tim Holtz likes to say, you do you, and just have fun. So we'll be back in just a bit, and we'll make some cards. All right, so we've sped up the video a little bit here now, and we're doing our voiceover time. So what we decided on this first card to do was take the cotton candy cardstock, and you can see we cut it out there. We used one of those Tim Holtz dies and cut out that center oval piece. It's very nice, very pretty. We cut that out of a couple different pieces of cardstock, and you'll see that in later cards as we make them, how we use those ovals. And all I'm doing here is using my Simon Says stamp ink and one of the flowers to kind of go with a monochrome card. It just looks really, really good, I think. I just like the way this looked. I actually think I saw maybe in one of the other videos, one of the other card makers kind of gave me this idea. So all we're doing on this at this point is we're just taking different size flowers and we're going to stamp that in just to make a monochrome card. Don't ever underestimate the power of a monochrome card or a card that's just similar colors, monochromatic. That's it, not monochrome, but monochromatic. Using those similar colors. And this is going to wind up actually being one of my favorite cards. I think we're actually going to wind up putting the metallic cardstock with the pink, smaller pink oval over it when we're done with this card, if I remember correctly. So all we're doing right now is just stamping in some of those smaller pieces, then going back with a little bit of a darker colored ink, the taffy, and we're putting in the center of the flowers there. And just pretty much just decorating, just finishing up this card at this point. I actually only did one card like this. I was going to do more, but I wound up only doing one monochromatic card. But you see how easy this is to freehand, guys? You see how you can just see right through the block and the stamps and everything just lines up so well. And you just you can just kind of just throw this right together. I'm actually going to go, at this point, there's a little bit of a smaller one. We're actually grabbed it now. You can see the different size, and we're going to go ahead and fill in those tiny little, you don't have to fill in those little flowers, but something just told me to do it, and I actually liked the way that it wound up looking a little bit better doing it this way. So we're going to do that. I actually cut out of the video the part where I went to put some leaves on there. We're actually going to wind up leaving it just like this because I really like the way that looks. Now what I'm going to show you here is, we did go back and add a couple of the solid flowers. This was actually not a mistake, just it wasn't necessary. It was very dark. It was the solid flower, and I just, yeah, I can take it or leave it. That's actually kind of messed up there, but that's going to get covered up once we put the oval back in. So in hindsight, I wouldn't do that. So what I want to show you now is just, it's kind of sped up. I experimented with what I was going to do in the middle. I liked that, but it just, the colors just didn't line up for me. I had a really hard time as I really wanted to make that work, but it just wouldn't work. So we wound up not doing that. So I had some other pattern paper from some scraps left over, some others. That one almost worked for me, but it was just too busy. There was too much going on there, so we didn't use that. We thought about using the pattern paper that came with it. Just wanted to see how it looked. That almost worked for me, but I kind of, then there was no place to put a sentiment. I would have to put it inside the card. I didn't want to cover up the pretty hearts, so we wound up actually not doing that as well. But what I'm doing here is just showing you how my creative process works. I'm literally just grabbing paper and just trying to see if I can find something that speaks to me. And when I find that, then that's what I go with. And so here, I grabbed some more of the pattern paper. That definitely didn't work. That did not work. The colors it just was not jiving. And then we're going to grab that last piece, that wallpaper looking piece over there. We're going to try it. I almost thought that would work if I matched the colors up, but in the end, no. The flowers, again, too busy. And then even going with just the wallpaper on the right there, it just didn't work for me. So in the end, we just decided to set this aside, and we weren't going to do that. I did take a sheet of vellum and cut it out, cut it in half, cut it down to 5.5, and then cut it in half again at 4.25. So I had 4 pieces, 4.25 by 5.5. So I just quartered a sheet of vellum because I was thinking, oh, this might look, maybe I can use the vellum on this card. But in the end, the vellum works behind it just like that, looks great. But as soon as I put it on a card, the vellum just sort of loses its, I like the texture and feel of it. I could have stayed with that. I could have gone with that. But you see how you can't really tell there's vellum there. I could have stamped on the vellum, given the card some texture. But I just didn't like the way it looked. So in the end, we just decided not to use the vellum and just go ahead and move on, do something else with this card. All right, so what we did here with the white cardstock was we stamped a bunch of sentiments on there, and then we just decided to fussy cut these out. So I'm going to have a little pile of sentiments ready to go for these cards as we start putting them together. And initially when I cut it out, we're just kind of trying to get the base shape there. You can kind of see there's definitely no order to it. Some of the words are still connected. And then we're going to go back and we're going to fine tune it. I've got this super sped up for you guys. And you're welcome to, kind of mute the volume and slow it down if you need to see it. But really, it's just fussy cutting at this point. And here on this one, we're just kind of going around and we're just trying to round off the corners. Anytime there's a dip in the wording, I try to cut along with that just to give it a little uniformity. Again, there is a die set that comes with this, but to me, this is just easy. I'm not a big fussy cutter, but this is not that hard. So all we're doing here is we're just cutting out these sentiments and getting them ready to go on the cards. All right, so what I need to do now is apologize because, as you can see up on the left there was some card work that did not get videoed. The camera was not recording, so we didn't get that. But you see here, I've got one of the die cut pieces, the center pieces, and all I did was, and we'd actually blended that, and it came out a little dark, a little brown. That's okay. So we're just taking now some distress ink, and we're going around the edges, and we're just kind of distressing it up a little, grunging it up a little bit more. It actually came out a lot darker than I wanted it to, but it actually works for this card. So we're just basically getting that ready to go on this particular card. And you can see that piece that we'd cut out. Now the white back there, we're actually going to blend over it because it was too white. So we're actually going to go back over that with some of the I think that might be either walnut stain, maybe vintage. I'm not sure what color that is, but we're just going to darken up the edges there. And then that other piece that goes over it, we actually wound up going over it with pink, a lighter pink color to kind of match the cardstock. So we're just doing this so that when I lay the dotted piece over it, it's actually, the holes are actually going to kind of pop a little bit as that shade comes through. So we've got that piece ready there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to lay the top pieces over it to go with it. And so you can see that once we lay that over it, it helps everything kind of stands out a little bit more of a grunged up card, but we're actually going to like the way that looks once it's all done. Now for this next one, this is where I made a happy mistake, as they say. I was trying a new technique, no idea what I was doing, and what we're doing here is we're just taking some different distress inks and pressing them out onto my blending mat, and I'm going to use a brayer, and I wanted to try and pick up some different colors and go over the top. And what winds up happening is the colors, they didn't blend. They won't unless you mix them up. You can't overblend them. You see the different colors coming through there, and initially, boy, this is looking terrible. I mean, right away I'm thinking, this is a mess, what have I done? But as I add the color, I'm noticing that they are maintaining a certain integrity. The purple, the pink, there's places where they are blending, and some dark and some light. You get a little bit of violet and different colors. And I like the way this looks, but then I realize I've got to do something. And it didn't do what I wanted it to do, so I thought we've got to go into salvage mode. And when you go into salvage mode, I just start thinking, okay, how am I going to fix this? It looks like a mess, so the only thing I'm thinking is we got to grunge this baby up. The only way we're going to save this is if we grunge it up. So first thing I got to do is I got to clean off my mat there so that we can be working on a surface that's not going to contaminate that beautiful piece any more than we already have. And so I wanted to spray it, try and get some movement of the water. That wasn't happening. It was just making the cardstock kind of curl up, and there just wasn't enough there. So I'm trying to blot off some of the excess. And the whole time this is happening, I just didn't give up. And I'm leaving this in here for you guys to see, because sometimes when you're working on a card, you can take a card too far, you can get carried away. But for me, I just wasn't willing to give up on this card. And so I'm going to grab my drying tool and we're going to dry this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab some ink, and we're just going to try and grunge this up. We're going to go over it, over the whole thing, around the edges, over the front, everything. What I love about watercolor cardstock, when it dries, you notice how it just, look at it, just laying itself back down. It literally just flattens back out. And so once we get this good and dry, so that I don't have any more color that's trying to blend where I don't want it to blend, now we can take this card and we can kind of try and do something a little different to it. I'm going to tell you that not only did I discover a new technique, I'm actually in love with this technique. I will make about, I don't know, I'm going to make a lot more of these. I'm going to run this through that embossing folder, about another 10 sheets, and I will sit here and I will do the same thing because when this is finished, the grunge look, it's going to look like old wallpaper. And I think what I might be using there is either vintage photo or maybe walnut stain. And what we're going to do is we're just going to start blending. We're just going to try and save this thing. And as I start adding this color, it completely changes the look of the cardstock. And it's starting to look like that old brownish yellowing wallpaper you would see in an old home or in an old restaurant. And it doesn't look bad. When it's finished, it looks so amazing. And I actually did not make a card out of this. This is actually just sitting right now in my craft room on the table for me to look at and admire, because every time I look at it, I just see one of those wonderful happy accidents. And I say I couldn't do this again if I wanted to. I'm so glad the camera was recording. I promise you, I will do everything I can to reproduce this card, but I'm sure it's not going to be, it just won't be this card. And there's a part of me that doesn't even want to try it again. There's a part of me that just wants to stop, just stay where we are and go, we're done. You know, let's don't even try to make another one. Going over that pink in the middle, with that, it's old paper. I can see it now with that old paper distress ink. It just did something. It looks almost like someone scratched the wallpaper or painted and then sanded over it, and it just looks incredible. And what I was doing here is toying with going in with some of the lighter colors, and I actually wound up getting just a little bit of that. I think I'm not sure what color that is there, but I wound up going with that just to kind of brighten up that centerpiece. And it just kept blending in with the brown, and it just kept getting more and more gorgeous grunge. And so I'm leaving this whole thing in. I've got it sped up for you. I'm leaving the whole thing in here just because, just even as I'm talking and watching it, I'm just amazed at how this came out. So now we're going to grab one more color, a little bit darker, and we're going to go around the edges. And this is what just takes this card, to me, to a whole new level. And even as I go lightly over the top, and it's darkening up those pinks and those purples, and just, I mean, there it is. I can't even describe how happy I am with the way this turned out. If you don't like it, don't do it. But I'm going to tell you right now, that's hands down one of the greatest things I've ever done in the craft room. All right, so let's go back to this card. We've got the white that we grunge the edge up. We've got our first panel piece that we also braided over a little bit with some of that pink flamingo. We're going to lay that down, and then we've got the card stock, the paper piece that came with the kit. We grunge that up a little bit. We're laying that over there, and there's our card front. And that just looks so good to me. Now we have this piece, which came out way darker than I intended, but that's okay. This whole card is going to have, to me, kind of a vibe of just an old photo, old wallpaper, just a very vintage vibe to it, and I just really, really like it. So all I'm doing at this point is just trying to figure out, what sentiment do I want to use? What am I going to do with this card? And there's a couple of them that will fit right there on that die cut piece. You can use two different sentiments. The hello friend, just because, I think just because will barely fit. But you can put those on there. Also, thank you will fit. I know hello friend and thank you will fit. And so we got that on there, and we got that ready to go. And then we're just going to grab some of those. I'm going to go ahead and pull in some of those collage strips, and we want to add to the front of this card. And at this point, what I did was I had some pieces that we kind of had left over from the other pieces that we cut out. So you see, they're not true rectangles or squares. These are actually leftover pieces. I just trimmed them up, and all I'm doing at this point is just kind of laying out the pieces to try and get an idea of how I want to do it. And I will tell you, one of the techniques I like to do whenever I have a layered card like this, I don't necessarily want everything to be symmetrical. I don't need everything to be inside of the corners. So you'll notice that those collage pieces are overlapping at least one layer, and sometimes even both layers. And that's okay. That just, to me, kind of pulls the whole card together. So it's really going to be up to you when you're making a card, whatever aesthetic you like. But we put those collage pieces down, and then on this one we decided to go ahead and break out the foam tape and a little dimensional foam, and we're going to raise this up just a little bit and put a little reinforcing piece on that corner there, because it just was trying to bend down. And then we're just going to pop that right in the middle, just like that. And then we got this beautiful, wonderful card. Now here's where I made a little bit of a mistake. I stamped inside the card. I wanted to put the sentiment, but I didn't use the stamping platform. I didn't double check my ink. I normally always first impression stamp to make sure I'm inking well. And on this one, we inked it up. I got it, and I stamped it, and it was a little faded. Now my wife says that's okay because it actually adds to the look of the card. It kind of makes the card look old. But as I'm looking here and thinking, oh, I got enough ink on there, and I press down and I stamp and I go, and then when I lift it up, it's a little light. But that's okay. This is still a really, really good looking card, I think. All right, so now with card number 2, what we did was we took some of that rose gold mirrored cardstock, and we also took a piece of the cotton candy, and we cut out that oval piece. So we've actually got 2 different pieces. We've got the rose gold outside with the cotton candy inside, and we also have a cotton candy outside with the rose gold inside. You'll see that in a card later. And then I also cut just a couple extra of those pieces out of that cream cardstock, which I think we're going to wind up not really using those. So on this one, all we're doing is we're just going to go ahead and we're going to adhere the rose gold to the outside of the card, and we're going to go ahead and put that cotton candy piece in the middle. I was toying with putting that cream on top and maybe with a sentiment, but the colors just didn't match. It didn't look right. So with this one, what we're actually going to do is we're just going to put that cotton candy piece right in the middle there. And then we're just going to stamp a sentiment directly onto that. Now, in hindsight, it probably would have been easier to stamp the sentiment first, but this worked out well because what I actually wind up doing is I grab my stamping platform. I do not want to make a mistake on this. I've already glued it together, and so I want to make sure that it's going to fit. And the sentiment that I'm using, you can see, is a little bit larger there. The "I'm so grateful for your kindness." So I have to get that lined up just right because it's just going to fit onto that larger oval. And you'll see that the first impression obviously wasn't dark enough. So we're going to do this probably about 3, 4, 5 times. What I learned with these stamps is don't press too hard. You can see it looks like I'm pressing hard there, but I'm not. And even though that card popped out just then, that's okay because we put it right back in the corner of the stamp platform and everything is still lined up. And we can put a little bit more ink on it. So we actually had to do this several times. A lot of that had to do with the fact that we're trying to stamp onto a card with all the different layers, so getting the impression just right is a little bit tricky. So whenever you're stamping, just remember you don't want to press hard. And if you have a stamp platform like this, it definitely makes it so much easier. So now, and I didn't show this die earlier, but I actually have a Biggs die, Tim Holtz Biggs die, and it makes these butterflies. And I cut one out of the patterned paper as well as one out of the white cardstock, and I'm just layering that on top of each other just to make it a little thicker and sturdier. And we're actually going to we're going to put the body together there, and we're going to put that on there. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to take some ink, and we're just going to a little bit around the edges just to darken it up. Because when I put that pink over it, it was just too much. There's just too much pink on the rose gold. It needed something to kind of tie it together. So what I'm doing here is just putting a little bit on the body. And this is just, honestly, this is just an old tiny piece of junk cube of ink that I bought somewhere off of like Wish or Temu or something like that. And it's not high quality ink. I'm just trying to use it up. And all I'm trying to do here is just get a little bit, and it's actually a gold shimmer. So I'm actually just putting a little bit of that or gold brown shimmer, just getting that on the edges of the wings, just so that when I put it on the card, it doesn't just look like pink overlaying pink. It helps to define those wings when it goes over the oval centerpiece there, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So we're going to go ahead and glue the body on, and then we're going to glue the butterfly onto the front of the card, and that's pretty much going to do it for card number 2. So you can already see it even in the video there. The butterfly, just because that little bit of shading we put on the wings, makes it stand out a little bit better. I was toying with just putting one piece in the middle and just kind of folding up the wings, and then in the end I decided no, we'll put 2 pieces on here just to kind of give a little bit of stability to this butterfly. I didn't really want to bend the wings up. I didn't want it to be more like a quote-unquote functional butterfly. So we're just going to just put that on there, and we're going to put that right in the corner, and that is going to do it for card number 2. All right, so for card number 3, we're going back to the monochromatic card that we had done earlier with the pinks on the cotton candy. And we're going to mount that onto a white card base. And what we're going to do on this one now is we're going to go back and we're going to use the inside part of that rose gold, metallic rose gold that was cut out of the outside part of the card we just finished. And so we're actually going to take this and we're going to just put this one in the middle. Now, I experimented a lot with this and tried a couple different things off camera, and that was just so bright. I was just going to stamp directly onto that, but it just was so bright that I felt like it needed to be toned down. So I cut a smaller pink oval, and I grabbed my little sticky mat out there rather than grabbing my stamping platform. And I want to go ahead and I'm going to put the sentiment onto this cotton candy insert. And this one's just going to be um, just to try and offset it, just the thinking of you, just to try and offset the just try and offset the brightness of that. It's not thinking of you. It's you are the best ever. And because I am doing this as a one-off, you know, it's a stamp and you get it right or you don't get it right, and I didn't want to have to cut out another one, I'm practicing my inking and my stamping on a blank sheet of paper. And once I know that I've got it where I want it, we're going to press that down good and solid. I'm going to pick it up, and of course it's going to stick. Now it's still going to come off the paper, but the print was perfect, and we're able to take that now after it's dried and put some foam tape on the back of it, and we're going to raise that up just a little bit, and then we're going to mount it onto that card. So again, this is another card that was pretty much made using everything in the kit with the exception of the dies. If you wanted to do this differently, you could have just cut rectangles out, and you could have done that with a cutter or a pair of scissors, and that would have worked well too. But that is that card. So now we move to card number 4 and 5, and this is card number 4. We're using the ones that I had stamped with the floral prints. The pretty background cards. And you can see the one on the left there's a little more space on it than the one on the right. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But what I wanted to do with the one on the left is I just felt like it needed something. So I took that pretty pink paper with the foil hearts and we cut off just a small strip and we're going to put that on the bottom of the card. Now, if you saw me with the sander there and you're wondering what was going on, that was in fact me sanding off the rough edges of the paper because my trimmer blade is dull. But we're going to put that on the bottom just like that, and then we're going to go back over here to all these pieces that we had fussy cut, and I'm going to find one that I want to put on this. And I don't want to cover up all the flowers, so I wound up going with the thinking of you, and we're going to put it right there kind of in that little open spot right there above the paper that we just added. So I'm just using some old mini dots because I didn't feel like cutting and dealing with some of my other foam. I just grabbed some of these dots because they're quick and easy to use, and we pop that on, and that's going to do it for that card. Real simple, real easy, and it looks very nice. Card number 5, we're going to do pretty much the same thing, but we're not going to put the paper on the bottom. This one we're just going to throw the cinnamon on there. I wanted all those flowers to stand out. Didn't need to trim it up a little bit, didn't like the edges, wound up cutting, then over cutting, and then when it was all said and done, it was just one of those things where it's like, you got to just leave something alone. But I did get some of that extra white trimmed off and got it down to where I wanted it so that we could put some foam tape on this, and then we're going to do the same thing we did with the other one. We're just going to throw this on the front of the card, and we're going to raise this up a little bit. And I am going to use those little tiny white foam dots. So you can see there that as we did that, felt like I cut that one too much. What you don't see off camera is I actually threw that one away and grabbed another one. So if it looks like the same one, it's not. And so we're going to put these dots on it, and then we're just going to mount this one right onto the front of the card. And that's actually going to do it for this card. Real simple, and just using everything in the kit, and just using some glue dots, and foam dots, and a pair of scissors. And that will do it for that card. Okay, so for card number 6, what I did off camera was I have this ink. It's Altenew Arctic ink, mixed media ink. And I buy ink sometimes. I don't know what I'm doing with it. And I finally decided to give this a shot. And I stamped those flowers onto that. And it has this kind of ice blue look. It's just beautiful to me. So I'm going to trim the card down to where it will fit on the front of an A2 card. And this one just, I mean, it just looks so good. I was just so surprised at how it came out. The flowers almost look like snowflakes. But I just think this is just a pretty, soft ice type blue. So I recommend that ink for one, but I just like the way this looks. So maybe you have a similar color in your stash. Don't be afraid to try that if you want to make a card with this. And what I want to do, I just felt like the card needed something on the inside, and I'm actually going to use a collage strip. When it's all said and done, um, I probably wouldn't put the collage strip in there. And here I line it up to the left, and then when I put it in, I actually offset a little bit, and I didn't like that either. But you know, once you're done, you're done. It's kind of certain things you just there's no takesies backsies. But I did like just to kind of put that in there just to match the color of the outside and just to give it a little something, just to use the materials that came with the card kit. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put a sentiment on there. And so what I need to do is I need to find a color that will work on the front of that card. I like the "You Are the Best Ever." We're going to freehand this one again. We're going to see my little fingers dance in there. That's me trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I have this Simon Says stamp Ocean. And I thought, let me see how this is going to look. So we're going to stamp it out. And I like that. And I put it up next to the card. And I said, let's just take a shot. And in the end, I really like this. So we're just going to stamp this on the front of the card. And just that quickly, we've got another card that's done. And that'll do it for card number 6. You Are the Best Ever. And we're ready to go. So for card number 7, we're going to go back to the embossing folders that we cut out with the rose gold metallic and the cotton candy. And again, we did 2 different ones. So you've got both the main piece, and then you have the cutout in 2 colors, and you can swap those out. But what we're going to do with this one is we're going to take that rose gold and we're just going to layer that back over a piece of white cardstock, and we're actually going to use the cotton candy in the middle. Once again, just as a reminder, when you're cutting these out, when you run something through an embossing folder and then you run it back through to cut a part of that out, run it back through the embossing folder again. You will lose detail. You will see that and you'll notice it, but you can easily go back and run it back through the embossing folder, and it brings that detail right back. And it pops right back into place. The detail is still there, and the card will just almost slide in like a puzzle piece. So don't forget to do that. So what we're doing now is I'm using some liquid glue because I really wanted to make sure this adhered down in the corners. I want to make sure those small pieces stayed in. When you're dealing with pieces like this, you've got to use the glue that works for you. Just make sure that you don't want that little piece to pop out. Always flip them over and press down from the back side. That's not going to hurt the embossing. You would have to put a lot of weight on it to do that. And so then we're just going to grab the thank you sentiment. And as always, we're practicing off camera. Make sure we get that right. And then we're just going to stamp this one on here, just ready to go. I actually did this one this way because it was small enough, it fit well enough, and it was easier to do it after it was on the card than before. But you can do this either way. You would need a sticky mat or something, otherwise it's going to lift up. But we get our ink on our stamp, we line it up, we press down, and it says thank you. And that's just, to me, a nice, beautiful thank you card. And you can mass produce these real easy. Just sit there and just run them off with your embossing folder and then just glue them together and make some cards. Make a stack of thank you cards. And so just like that, I had to do a little repair there. And just like that, another card down. All right, so for card number 8, we took some of the cream cardstock and ran it through the embossing folder. And what I want to do now is add a little color to it. And so I'm just experimenting with some different distress oxides. This one was a little bit too dark for me, but I do like this dried marigold. So we're actually going to wind up going with this and I think some shabby shutters too. And what we're going to do is we're just going to use our brayer just to lightly lay a little bit of color over this. It's a little different than the other technique where we put the ink on the mat and then picked it up. This way we're just coming straight off the pad with one color. And then we're going to go back with another color and we're going to add just a little bit more. So I like that, but I felt like it needed some shading. So what we're actually going to do is step in now with the shabby shutters, and we're going to just give it a little bit of shading. Now that little part in the middle there where the color's picking up in the open square, that's fine. You could stamp directly over that. But what I'm actually going to do is take a cutout piece that I had sprayed and blended and worked to get some colors with. And I actually had this laying off to the side, and I felt like it was a good match for this card. And then what I decided to do was to go with a little embossing. I'm not a big embosser. It's kind of new for me. So we're putting our anti-static powder on there. And we're just going to emboss. And I have this embossing powder in my stash. It's called Sand. And you'll see when it's done, I think it looked really good. I think it just added to the overall aesthetic of this card. So we put our powder on there, we ink up our folder, our stamp. And this is a little tricky because, you know, you got to go quick and you got to get the ink on there, and you either get it or you don't. And so we'll put the powder on there, looks good. And we're going to take and clean up our extra powder. And we're going to grab our embossing gun and we're going to emboss this. And when this is done, I'm going to slow it down. It's a little fast right now, but when this is done, you will see that this just looks really, really good. It has a little shine to it. There's points where you can't read it, but when you turn it, it just really lights up. So you can see that sand in there, and then when you turn it, that just, to me, just looks so good. So just experiment with your embossing powders. If you know, just you don't know till you try. And I really like the way that this came out. So all we're going to do now is we're going to take that cutout piece and we're going to grab some of our foam tape, and we're going to go ahead and put that on the back of that to mount it to the front of the card. First, we're going to do is mount that card panel onto a card base. And this is just a standard side opening card. I didn't do the vertical. So we're going to put that on there. And then we're going to grab that Hello Friend, and we're going to put that on there. And it has a little curve to it. I started to straighten it out, but I actually kind of liked it. Once we added the strips on the back to pop it up, it's like it just folded down and sort of reached out like it was grabbing the front of the card. I just thought it looked pretty neat. So sometimes you get these happy little accidents, and this was one of them. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and pull the backs off. Got all our stick. Actually, I went and put one more piece on. I think, yeah, because we wanted those end pieces there to not tear off. And so we're going to go back. We're going to put that on the front of the card and another card down. So for card number 9, we have another piece of that cotton candy that we had cut out, ran through the embossing folder. We did cut out the middle. And you can see I inked it up. I don't remember what color we used there. I apologize. That's one where the camera was not recording. But we do have that, so we're going to mount that onto our card base. And what I'm going to do with this one is we're going to use the metallic to go in the middle there. But again, it's so bright. I like it, but I don't like it as a large, bold sentiment. So we're actually going to do, once we get this metallic put down, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to put that butterfly you see up there. We're going to put the butterfly on the top of it. Now, I've used the butterfly a couple times. I do have the Tim Holtz. It's a Tim Holtz Biggs die. I don't even know if it may be discontinued. But if you don't have the die, you can use any butterfly ephemera or any other ephemera that you have, any rustic piece. If you have any kind of a die, you could cut anything out here and put it over that mirrored insert to kind of soften that a little bit. You could, again, stamp right onto that with some archival, but you do want to be careful because the ink will tend to slip when you're stamping onto a mirrored surface. But you could use any butterfly here from your ephemera. Tim Holtz has that. Ideology makes ephemera, all kinds of ephemera from Tim Holtz. That's just like the collage tiles that came in the kit. I actually did look at a couple collage tiles, thought about putting one up there, turning it at an angle, but when it was, I didn't like it. And I just felt like this pink butterfly was just real pretty. So what we're doing here is we're just using the small dots in the middle. Unlike the other butterfly, I did want to have a little bit of a play in the wings with this one. And so you see kind of lifting it up there, which helps it it'll adhere well to that front, but then the wings kind of have a little more play to them. Feels a little bit more like a butterfly actually sitting on the card. Now what I'm going to do next is I've actually got some sentiment strips, and you can get these from anywhere. Tim Holtz, again, the Ideology makes them. You can get these, different companies make them, but I actually got these off of Temu. I love Temu for like $1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a couple of sentiment strips, and I actually found one. I don't remember what they say. I think it's spread your wings, fly high, something like that. But I'm actually going to find these 2 sentiments here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them over that little strip that I tore off of the paper. Remember how we were tearing that off the top of the paper and keeping it because we didn't want to waste anything? So we're actually going to put these sentiment strips over this, and then we're going to trim it down so there's a little border around it. and it's going to say, it says, uh, don't forget to fly. Find joy in the ordinary and don't forget to fly. And so we're going to do that, trim it down. It's got a nice little border around it. And we're going to put on the back, we're going to put some foam tape to pop it up. And we're going to just put this right on the front of the card like this. So this is one where we had to reach into our stash a little bit and grab a few things, but it worked out really well. So don't forget, don't be afraid of trying new things and adding things and doing things differently. And don't be afraid to buy the bargain stuff. Don't be afraid. Temu, I don't know how much paper crafting stuff I bought from them. So that being said, find what you can afford, find what works for you, and then just make some nice cards. So we did trim this down a little bit and throw it in an envelope, and we are ready to go. All right, we are almost there. Card number 10. We went into our stock, and remember we showed at the beginning of the video how we had paired up some papers. And all we're doing now is taking some of those papers and trimming them down to fit an A2 card. And so we're going to make this little bottom stripe section, and then we're going to put the other blue piece on top. Now when we get to the end of this card, we're actually going to do some blending on it, because the card by itself was fine. The colors match, it looked good, but it just looked not too crisp. It looked crisp, it looked plain. And so what I'm doing right here is, again, sanding off the edges of the bad paper where I need to get a new paper cutter, a new trimmer. And we're going to use some liquid glue here because I like to have a little room to wiggle these. I don't want them to dry that fast. I can put it on, turn it, situate it, make sure my edges line up good. And anytime I'm cutting two pieces and putting them together, this is what I like to do, just to make sure that there's no, I don't get a piece put on crooked and can't fix it. If it hangs over, we can trim it if it's too big. But so we got that on there, and that just looks really nice. And then I'm just trying to decide what I want to do with the collage strips and how I want to put these on. And what I actually wound up doing with this one was, instead of using two collage strips, so I actually just used the one, and then we're going to actually stamp a sentiment a sentiment onto this one. So you see how the colors match up nicely. I offset a little bit so that you kind of gives it that, I guess, the old rule of the thirds to some degree, but it just looks really good there. I had to trim off the top just a little bit. And so when I'm doing this, I wanted to put a sentiment on there, and I went with this Uncharted Mariner. I had a lighter color that didn't work, and this just looks so good right here. So we stamped that on there, but it just felt like it needed something. So what I did here was we went and grabbed some broken china, and we're just going to blend around the edges. And that just helped to sort of pull the whole card together. It softened the whole card, and when it's done, I think it made the card look a little bit better, a little more antiqued, and in the end, one more card is down. So for card number 11, very similar to card number 10, we're going to take some of that paper pad that we had paired up earlier and some of the collage strips. And so just trying to get the layout together on this one. Decided I wanted to do this one more of a horizontal fold. And so what we're doing is just cutting the paper to fit, and we're going to make just a smaller strip to go on the bottom, just enough. And I hadn't really planned this, but it wound up working out really well, because we're actually going to put a sentiment on that, and we're going to emboss that in just a minute. So I wanted this pretty paper to kind of be the focal point and stand out a little bit more. So we made this piece a little bit larger. And then when we, again, keeping that top piece for use later. But what we're going to do is we're going to fix the burrs on the edges with my little sanding tool, and we're going to glue that short strip on the bottom, and then we're going to glue the metallic green on the top. And I just like the way these colors worked together. And again, we're using liquid glue because that gives me just a little more time. Obviously, you don't want to do what I did there, flip it over and get glue all over your workspace, so you just have to clean that up real quick. If it dries on the glass mat, I have a little scraper that I can use to clean it with. So one of the things I love about the glass mat, I have a flat razor, and it just comes right off. But go ahead and put a little liquid glue on the top, line it up, press it in, get a good connection there. And now we're going to get to play with some of these collage strips. And going back to what we had to trim that off a little bit there. Going back to what I talked about earlier, using these longer pieces, I was trying to decide if I wanted to do like two or kind of a long piece or how I wanted to do it. And as I was looking at these, I didn't like the double pieces. I just decided to go back and grab that little die that was a perfect fit. And what we're actually going to do is cut out three, just pick three sections. I love that little bird, so we're going to cut that bird out there. And I slowed this next section down a little bit just so you could kind of see. When I cut that one out, and then the next two, which we'll do off camera, we're going to have three nice little sort of jagged edged pieces of ephemera that we're going to put on the card. So you can see there they're all cut out and ready to go. Now all we're going to do is take and grab our foam tape, because we do want to lift these up, and I just laid them out just to kind of see how they would look before we put them on. And once I get all this foam tape on, I'm actually going to lay them out one more time, make sure the alignment looks good and everything where I want it. Then I'll lift one up and I'll put it down one at a time. You'll see what I mean here. So we're lining them up, and once I know that I got them where I want them, we're going to put that middle one in there, and we do the one on the left and then the one on the right. And after this is where it got interesting, because this is where I decided last minute to not just put a sentiment down there on the bottom, but to emboss it. And so off camera, I went through several different inks and tried several different things, and you can see there that's where we tried some different colors. And I actually wound up going with the Rusty Hinge because it was a little bit of a darker orange, more of a pumpkin-y orange. And so I actually wound up going with this Rusty Hinge. We're going to stamp it in that color, and we're going to emboss it in that color. But the challenge here is that I've got ephemera in the way, and we're also dealing with card stock that's already been glued down. So I wasn't sure how this was going to turn out, but when we put it on the card, it actually came out really well. So I just did love that color. So that's what we did. We grabbed that, and then we went and got some of our embossing glaze. We have the matching color embossing glaze. So we're going to stamp it in Rusty Hinge, and then we're going to emboss it with Rusty Hinge. And you will notice here that I did not shake up my container ahead of time, so we got some lumps in there. That's okay. They went right back into the container. Had to use my brush to clean off a few places where we didn't get it well enough with the powder tool. Put the extra back in there for our next use. And then we're going to grab a little bit off camera because the plug was not wanting to reach. So we did go ahead and get that embossed. And once we're done, there's another card, and it looks good. All right, so for card 12, we decided to go a little simpler on this one. We're going to pair up two pieces like we did the last two cards, but then I just really like this paper. I didn't want to take anything away from it. I actually wound up covering it up a little bit, but I think it worked well with the collage strips that we're going to use to go with it. So we're just sanding off the edges there, and then we're going to use our Simon Says Stamp dot runner that came with the kit, and we're just going to go ahead and glue that down on the front of the card. And then what I'm going to do now is we're going to take some more collage strips. And these are the ones that I actually did the double cut. These are the ones where I glued two side by side and cut them out. And then I'm going to use one single cut just to try and make it look really good. I took a scrap piece of paper and was experimenting with some different inks to see how I wanted to blend the edges. And that one was just too light. It wasn't quite working. So we actually wind up, apologize for the camera shaking there, but we actually wind up going really with the gathered twigs. Looked really good. Also like the, I can't remember if that's Shabby Shutters or Old Paper. I think it's Shabby Shutters, but I do like the gathered twigs. And it just looked, it worked really well. And all we're doing here is just laying this over it to kind of see how it looks, to make sure the colors and everything are going to match up. That Just Because up there was one I had originally done, and it looked terrible. So we decided to change that up. And here's the gathered twigs, and it just looks so good. Just gives it that nice, again, that nice kind of grunged up edge, the very antiqued feel. And I just think that this particular paper pad lent itself very well to a vintage type card making style. So we just had some fun with that. So now we're just taking one of those sentiments we'd stamped and cut out earlier, fussy cut earlier, the thinking of you, and we're just sticking with the bundled sage. That's the other color we use. So the bundled sage and the gathered twigs, and we're just going to take that, and that's going to be our sentiment. Now this one, I just went ahead and, while I had the ink out, I just went ahead and blended this a little bit, and that's going in my card stash. That'll be used for something later on, but that card is now ready to go. So that being done, we go ahead and we're going to line up our pieces, just see how I like them on the card, same as we did before. And then we'll take these off and we'll grab some foam tape so that we can put it on the back of that and put it where we want it. I did get this one right. I actually blended this one before we put all of the ephemera on there. I actually took the time to go around the card and blend it this time to give it that nice, again, that vintage edge. Vintage photo is a great color, but it didn't work well with some of the papers. And the gathered twigs was just brown enough and just antiqued enough, I think, to really work well there. So now we're going to just line these up, make sure we got them where we want them, and then we're going to grab our foam tape and we're just going to go ahead and put those on there. And you can see again on the back where it was taped together. I actually did not do foam tape on these. We just glued them straight down. So I think I may put foam tape on that middle one. Let's see. Anyways, this actually looked good. It just laid into the paper well. And then this one, I just felt like it did need something, but in the end, I just said no. We're just gonna glue that down, and then we're just gonna take that sentiment, and we will pop up the thinking of you, because with everything else laid down, I didn't want it laying over the ephemera. I just thought it looked better this way. So we're gonna do that. And that's going to finish up our 12th card. Okay, so voiceover is all done. Let's do a review of the cards. We've got a few pieces left over, plenty of paper left over off to the side. I won't show you that, but we'll use these for another time. We've got all these little pieces left over. We still have quite a bit of the collage strips. Probably 5, 6, about 8 sheets of the paper. So we've got a lot left over. But let's take a look at what we made. Now this one we made just by using the stamps and just any ink that we had on hand. I did this with the Arctic ink, and then I did put a collage strip on the inside just to give it just something, just a little something extra. And then you can write your note there. So there is our first card. And then our second card also made with just the stamps and different inks on hand, and using my Simon Says stamp positively saturated inks. Then we fussy cut the Just Because, left it in white. We didn't do any kind of grunging or highlighting on this one. So there's the second card. And then the third card is similar. This one we took a sheet of the paper and we cut it and we just put a trim at the bottom. We just trimmed it and put a little piece at the bottom. And a lot of times what I'll do is in the video we'll cut it and then we'll flush it up. But this one's actually got a little lip to it. That's okay too. It was easy just to glue it on there and kind of be done with it. Nothing on the inside. Fussy cut the sentiment. So again, that one also made just using everything that came with the kit. And then again, also this one using everything that came with the kit, except for this inner piece here. This was just a die we had on hand. You could have fussy cut this. You could have just cut a square, a rectangle with a mirrored piece, and then stamped onto the pink cardstock. But so there is another card that we made. That's card number 4. Here's card number 5. And so this is just the reverse of this. This piece came out of this one. And then we went and cut the large pink came out of this one, and we just stamped directly onto that. And then we did have that butterfly in our stash of dies, and so we used that. And so there is that card. And then let's see here. The next card we have is, let me pull these up and make sure we can see most of these. They probably won't all fit in the space here. Next card, we went with the old grunge, so we used some dies we had on hand, dotted rectangles. And those were from Stamps of Life, and then we just used the collage pieces. We cut them up there. Those were actually some extra pieces that we used and just grunged it up. This, when this dried, this came out really brown. In hindsight, I may go back and just put some spatter on that, maybe some gold spatter, might have looked really good on it. But either way, that's a nice grunge card, just a nice hello friend. And then we did stamp on the inside. Did not stamp that one well. And so what I'll probably do later is I'll probably wind up stamping a sentiment onto a piece of cardstock and just gluing that over that. So anytime you make a mistake like that, guess what you can do when you're making cards? You can cover it up. I mean, we could easily go in here and we could throw in some collage pieces and then just kind of layer them across this way, cut it and layer it this way, and then put your note at the bottom. And maybe use one of the more grungy pieces, but that's fixable, so I'm not worried about that. And then we've got this one. Oh, this is absolutely beautiful. Just use the embossing folder and the die that came with it. This was all material that came in the kit. And boy, that die, that embossing folder is amazing. And so just looks so good. We could color that or grunge that if we wanted to, but I just felt like the shininess, I just felt we just wanted to leave that alone. Just let that be what it is. I like that. And then we did this one, and holy moly. This is going to be my new favorite technique. We never used this. We didn't make this one yet, but this one, I mean, the way this one came out using the brayer and the distress inks with the different colors and then grunging it up. So this, I can't wait to do something. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm so glad I had the camera running or I wouldn't be able to go back and duplicate this. So here we have this one, and we just brayered over this. And then we did two colors. We went back because I didn't like originally that peach was, I can't remember what color I used, but so we went over that, and there's that card. And we did do the sentiment. Now, if you hold it a certain way, it's a little hard to read, but once the light hits it with that sand embossing powder, that hello friend just looks so good. So there's a card we made. Love that card. And then here's another one. And we used the material, again, braying over the embossing, and we just inlaid that silver piece. And I really didn't know what to do in the middle of it, so I just thought, let's just put a nice butterfly over it. And again, using that die that we had. And the Biggs die, it actually comes with these two butterflies. Only gives you one body, though. That was a little disappointing. You have to cut a second body. But I actually had this in my stash, and this worked out. But any butterfly die, anything you could have put over there, you could have used a piece of ephemera, and I think it would have looked really nice. But I love the way this came out. Used some sentiment strips from my stash and just glued those over some of the paper that came with the kit and just cut those out and put that on there. So that's I think that's a really nice looking card as well. Let's put that one there. Here's the one we liked. And again, when we did this one, it was a little too bright. So we just grunged it up with that same shade of blue, just to soften the edges. And don't forget, you don't always have to stamp in black. So there's that card. Just another really, really good looking card, I think. So we have that one. We got two more here. And I love the way this came out. I took a while to settle in on it, but I do love that with the embossing. And I think that might have been the wild honey we settled on. I don't remember what we settled on. But anyways, just so nice. And you could stamp a sentiment on the inside of any of these, but I like that one. Just hello, friend. Then maybe on the inside, use the stamp from the kit. I'm so grateful for your kindness. That would look good as well. And then here's the last one we did. And the only thing I'm not real excited with about this one is the thinking of you. We did spray it with some resist spray to give it a little shine. And so when you look at it, though, it does. It looks like an old label. It just has an old feel. It kind of fits, but I think I got it a little bit too dark. But I still like this card. So there we go, guys. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 cards and could easily make 3, 4, 5, 6 more. Love this kit. All the kit, 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 but added embossing powder. And you have to add inks. You got to bring inks to any kit. All the kit, all in the kit. Let's see, all in the kit. So really only these 4, and then other than the embossing, it was all made with the kit. And so if you just reach out and use your dies, any extra dies you have on hand, you can really come up with some great stuff. So there you go, guys. Once again, hope this encourages you to have fun. Probably spent about 2-3 days on and off in the craft room working on these cards. Once you get your layout, once you get everything together, you kind of know where you're going, you get your paper sorted and everything, you just start making cards, and that goes really fast. And just as a reminder, see, we had these paired up and sorted and written. Didn't make a card with these, didn't make a card with these two, didn't make a card with these two. So we got, again, 3 cards right here, just there. And then we actually had, we were going to grunge these up and do those. We didn't use those. So we've just got a lot of paper left and got a whole bunch of collage strips. And so just a lot more cards we could make. So there you go, guys. Once again, I hope this encourages you. It's a great kit. Just keep your eye out on the Simon Says stamp kits. You see one you like, just know that you're going to be able to use it, and just know that you're going to use it again and again. We'll use this stamp set. We'll sit down one day, and I'll probably just make 20 or 30 of these cards because I love them, and maybe even probably do the same thing with the embossing folder. But we'll just leave it. What we'll do with this one is we actually won't even, we won't cut out the middle. We'll just emboss it like this and then stamp like that. So there you go, guys. Once again, hope this has inspired you to have a little fun. And as always, just remember that the ability to create is a gift from God. So until next time, Pastor Ian saying, happy Krabby Crafting.